in a missionary Baptist church, I learned from the pulpit how to condemn people because they sin differently than me. Or because they make statements that I don't necessarily agree with. So I want to beat them up. Used to. Not so much now. I have met this awesome young lady that cuts hair in Hubbard. Hi Meg, hope you're watching. She's awesome. I think she'd be really fun to work with. But only when the timing's right. But what had happened if, because I'm a little bit different and she's a little bit different and maybe our political views don't exactly line up, that the first thing I would want to do is grab my Bible and go in there and beat her about the head and shoulders with it. Would it work? It's not going to work. As a matter of fact, it's going to drive her away from God more than that, than just me being me. And that's what God has called us to be. Be you.
Yeah.
There's nobody just like me. That's why I'm Popeye, because I am what I am. There's nobody just like Danny. There's nobody just like Jody, or any of you ladies, or any of your other guys out there. There's nobody just like you. God didn't make us all the same. But we do things to hurt the cause for Christ because we're hard-headed. But guess what? Yes, she is. And God made us that way, though. God made us hard-headed. Well, I marked the wrong thing. There we go. I cheated this time. I marked a couple of my verses. So for those of you that have your word, turn into 2 Timothy chapter 2. I think Timothy wrote this. I think he wrote it specifically to me. Hello. Hi.
Morning.
Good morning. Y'all come on in.
Okay.
Find a seat. Sit on the floor. It don't matter. If you ain't at home, you ought to be. Good morning, my brother. Yeah. Y'all missed my singing.
Uh-oh.
So you're probably better off.
We missed the whole orchestra, you mean?
Yeah. All right. So we're in 2 Timothy chapter 2. If you'd like to turn there. Because I was telling everybody that this is something that God's been dealing with me about. And so there we are. And we're going to start in verse 14. And it says, remind them of these things and charge them before God not to fight about words.
What chapter is that?
2.
Yeah.
2 Timothy 2:14.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
It's okay. I want to read that again because I think that is super, super, super important to us as Christians. Remind them of these things and charge them before God not to fight about words. Words don't matter, y'all. Not like the ones we want to fight over. What matters is what's in our hearts.
Amen.
What matters is where your heart is with your relationship with God. You know, going on down to verse 15. Be diligent to present yourself to God as one approved, a worker who doesn't need to be ashamed, correctly teaching the word of truth. That's what we do.
He smiles. He knows what he's doing.
But here's even better. Avoid irreverent and empty speech, since those who engage in it will produce even more godlessness, and their teaching will spread like gangrene. These two people that were people of the time, Hymenaeus and Philetus, are among them. And he's calling people out because of what they're doing. They had departed from the truth, saying the resurrection has already taken place, and the ruining of the faith of some. How bad is it going to be if because of something that comes out of our mouth, because we want to argue about something stupid, and they lose their salvation, they get turned away from God because we're supposed to be the right person. We're supposed to be the Christian. We're supposed to edify and lift them up.
Amen.
Even if they say something we don't agree with. It's not worth fighting over. It's not worth beating people up over.
Man, T, where you at, buddy?
He's right there. He's watching. He's watching, I guarantee you. Nevertheless, God's solid foundation stands firm, bearing this inscription: the Lord knows who are His. And let everyone who calls on the name of the Lord turn away from wickedness. Wow. That's what God's been dealing with me with. Because you know what? We have people that are causing people to lose their chance at salvation because they think or do something different than you. Or because they think or do something different than me. You know, I hear it almost every single day on the stupid radio about how the people want to beat people up over people being drag queens. You want to dress like a woman? Go for it. I don't care. I don't think it's very smart. I don't agree with it. But guess what? I've known some people who did that. They were awesome people, and I would never beat them up for that. Because that's not what we're called to do. Right? Is that right? It is. All right. Here, let's set this over here. Okay? Let's turn over into the book of Proverbs. We're going to start in chapter 21.
Kathy, come back here.
Yeah, we don't want this on camera.
Find a chair.
All right, Proverbs chapter 21. We're going to hang out in Proverbs for a little bit today because I like Proverbs, because guess what? There's a lot of really good information in there about how we're supposed to act, how we're supposed to think. Chapter 21, I said that right? Let's look at verse 23. We ready? Huh? There you go. We probably all need to mark it. Because it says, the one who guards his mouth and tongue keeps himself out of trouble. Wow. In other words, sometimes it's hard not to be verse 24, which says, the arrogant and proud person named mocker acts with excessive arrogance. And I would like to add ignorance behind it. But guess what? And we're going to get to it because it's in Proverbs, but there's an old saying that says that, you know, if the fool keeps his mouth shut, he makes him wonder if it's full until he removes all doubt by opening his mouth. That's in Proverbs. We're going to get to that. It's just worded differently. So, let's go to chapter 15 of Proverbs. There's a lot of them in here.
There is. Proverbs has
See, that's why I love God. Because His timing, His everything in my life and in y'all's life and in His Word. Because He gives it to us. Like T was saying last week, you know what? We don't have instructions.
yes, you do in Proverbs.
Bible, B-I-B-L-E, basic instructions before leaving earth. There you go.
Bible.
That's right.
I like that.
Let's start at 15. We're going to go to verse 1. It says, a gentle answer turns away anger, but a harsh word stirs up wrath. The tongue of the wise makes knowledge attractive, but the mouth of fools blurts out foolishness. That's pretty strong. Go down 2 more verses. The tongue that heals is a tree of life, but a devious tongue breaks the spirit. Wow. Go down 2 more verses. The house of the righteousness has great wealth, but trouble accompanies the income of the wicked. Number 7, the lips of the wise broadcast knowledge, but not so the heart looks of fools. But not so the heart of fools. There we go. Jump over to 14. Told you there's a lot in here. A discerning mind seeks knowledge, but the mouth of fools feeds on foolishness. Flip over a page if yours is like mine and go to verse 28. The mind of the righteous person thinks before answering, but the mouth of the wicked blurts out evil things.
Mm-hmm.
Where was that one at?
That's verse 28 in chapter 15. See, the one thing that, like I was telling you earlier, is it's not necessarily things I've said recently. You know, God's bringing this condemnation on me for things I've said in the past, about things that I didn't really understand and I didn't really know. And it's put a conviction on my heart, and that's why I'm sharing this. Because it's so important that we not take away somebody else's salvation or somebody else's conviction because they see us. Because guess what? A lot of times we're the only Bible that they're ever going to see, is how we act and what they hear us say that comes out of our mouths. You know, I was just talking with T about this the other day, the verse that says that we're supposed to be gentle as doves but wise as serpents. Gentle as doves. And you know, I keep saying this because it means so much to me about why am I going to beat you up because you sin differently than me? It doesn't matter. God doesn't see it that way. God doesn't see it as I told a little white lie or I went out and I murdered somebody. It's all sin to Him.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't make a difference.
That's right.
It's all sin. Did I tell y'all to move over to Proverbs 10? All right, cool. Proverbs 10, verse 19. When there are many words, sin is unavoidable, but the one who controls his lips is prudent. Wow. Proverbs is pretty smart. Basically, he said, they're saying here, and all these that we're going to look at today, is basically like Grandma used to tell me, if you ain't got something nice to say, don't say it.
at all.
That's right. Grandma was smart.
I remember that scene.
Making her laugh more than once.
There you go. Because I don't know, this isn't in my notes, but my finger's on it, so I've got to read it. I'm sorry, guys. It's probably to me. A fool despises his father's discipline, but a person who accepts correction is sensible. I take that, Lord. I take that. The tongue, verse 4, just above it, where I was supposed to read, the tongue that heals is a tree of life, but a devious tongue breaks the spirit. That's where I'm being convicted. How many hearts have I broken because of this right here? How many hearts have I turned away from God because they heard something come out of my mouth that should have never crossed my lips? That's why this is so strong to me right now. Because this is where God's working on me in my life, is being the person He called me to be. Let's flip over the page. Same chapter, verse 28. The mind of the righteous person thinks before answering, but the mouth of the wicked blurts out evil things. I saw that. How many of you have been told to think before you speak?
Sometimes it's hard.
It's very hard. Yeah, it's very hard. Think before you speak. Is what you want to say going to make a difference in what you need to say? Turn to page, chapter 17. Chapter 17, verse 9. Whoever conceals an offense promotes love, but whoever gossips about it separates friends. You know, sometimes, especially in a position as a pastor, we're told things in confidence. And I used to say when I was in the club that if everything that I had stored up here in this head spilled out, the world would explode. You know, if we have somebody that we're counseling with, a friend, a loved one, an enemy, it doesn't matter, and they tell you something in confidence, guess what? Keep it that way. There are very few people on this planet that know things that I did when I was in the military. Kathy don't even know everything I did while I was in the military. You know, I'm still in my job, but, you know, T has a little bit more knowledge about what I did while I was in the military because we're brothers. But as far as that goes, nobody else knows. And nobody else is going to know except God. He knows. All right. That was 17:9. Let's go to 17:27. It says, the one who has knowledge restrains his word. The one who keeps a cool head is the person of understanding. Wow. Oh, and then there's verse 28. I said it earlier. Even a fool is considered wise when he keeps silent. Discerning when he seals his lips. The one who has knowledge restrains his word, and the one who keeps a cool head is a person of understanding. I posted a meme on Facebook that showed a face of Rowan Atkinson, one of my favorite comedians from England. And he was making a funny face, and he says, your expression when God tells you to just type okay. Sometimes that's all we need to do. It's okay. You can tear me down, you can break me down, you can tell me what a fool you think I am, and it's okay. I'm not perfect, and I know I'm not perfect. There are people that used to be in my life that know the old me. They have nothing to do with me now for a reason, and I don't blame them. Because I did a lot of stupid things. But it's okay. So I have, when I worked out at the state school, I had a little bit more understanding when I worked on the juvenile unit, because I knew where these kids were coming from, because I did come out of an abusive home. I did run away from home. I lived on the street for a while. You know, I did drugs. I did a lot of stupid stuff in my life. And I could blame it on my dad, and I could blame it on my stepmother, and I could blame it on the world and everybody else. But, you know, none of that stuff happened because of them. It all happened because of the choices that I made. And that's what I tried to share with those young men that were out there. Was, you know, you made a stupid mistake. Okay. It's time to move on. Get over it and move on. Did we go into chapter 26 yet of Proverbs?
No.
Okay, well let's move over to chapter 26 in Proverbs. I love Proverbs. Meeting here, cool. All right, everybody in chapter 17? Nope, we're in chapter 26. We're going to start in verse 20. Without wood, fire goes out. Without a gossip, conflict dies down. A charcoal for embers and wood for fire, so is a quarrelsome person for kindling strife. A gossip's words are like choice food that goes down to no one's innermost being. Smooth lips with an evil heart are like glaze on an earthen vessel. A hateful person disguises himself with his speech and harbors deceit within. When he speaks graciously, don't believe him, for there are 7 detestable things in his heart. Though his hatred is concealed by deception, his evil will be revealed by the assembly. The one who digs a pit will fall into it, and whoever rolls a stone, it will come back on him. A lying tongue hates those it crushes, and a flattering mouth causes ruin. Boy, did some of that hit home. So let's not gossip, y'all. Let's not gossip. But we also don't want to be the person that has gall in their heart and the 7 detestable things in our hearts. We don't want to be like that. We don't want to be the one digging the pit because we're going to fall into it. We don't want to be the person that's pushing the stone up the hill because guess what? It'll roll back on you. We don't want to have a lying tongue because it hates and it crushes those around us. All right. So, I think we're done with Proverbs for a moment.
My grandmother used to say, what you do today may not come back tomorrow,
Right?
but it will come back and bite you in the
Yeah, sure will.
So you better do right the first time.
Carla.
That way you won't be in trouble.
Carla. Carla.
That's right. Jesus says you may not get it now, it will come back, but it's gonna come back and it's gonna get you.
All right. There it is. If I can find it, I was going to say we're going to go over into 1 Peter
First Peter.
chapter 3. We're going to jump into the New Testament. First Peter chapter 3. Now I know for most of you people out there in Facebook land, you're thinking, oh, 1 Peter chapter 3, I know that one word for word. The very first verse. But you don't know the rest of it. Because in the first verse, and every man in here has probably said it, and every man out there on Facebook, if you haven't said it, you'll probably say it from now on. It says, in the same way, wives, submit yourselves to your husbands, so that even if some disobey the word, they may be won over without a word by the way their wives live. See, most people stop right here. In the same way, wives, submit yourselves to your husband. That's where we stop. That's not what it's about. I want to go on down from there, so because we're not trying to win a beauty contest, we're trying to share the word. And we're chapter 3, verse 8. I think I'm going to start there. Finally, all of you be like-minded and sympathetic. Love one another and be compassionate and humble. Not paying back evil for evil or insult for insult. But on the contrary, give a blessing since you were called for this, so that you may inherit a blessing. Now here's the verses I have marked. For the one who wants to love life and to see good days, let him keep his tongue from evil and his lips from speaking deceit. Let him turn away from evil and do what is good. Let him speak peace and pursue it, because the eyes of the Lord are on the righteousness, and his ears are open to their prayers. But the face of the Lord is against those who do what is evil. Pretty strong commandment. Not a very easy one to do either, is it? Because we live in this world. But thank goodness we have Jesus, and he overcame this world. And that's why we're called Christians, because we are Christ-like. All right. Ephesians. Corinthians, Ephesians. Ephesians chapter 4. Verse 29. No foul language should come from your mouth, but only what is good for building up someone in need, so that it gives grace to those that hear. And don't grieve God's Holy Spirit. We were sealed by him for the day of redemption. Let all bitterness, anger, and wrath, shouting, and slander be removed from you, along with all malice. So there's where it comes into that verse about be angry but sin not. How many of you ever get angry?
No.
Almost daily.
Now,
I get you. Well, you're an angel, sweetie. No, I'm not. I am not. But just because we get angry, we don't want to grieve the Spirit. God understands we're human. He understands we're flawed. You know, He called us knowing our own stupidity. He called us knowing the stupid things that we were going to do in our lives. But yet, He's kind of like, I can use that. Because you will be able to reach people that I won't be able to reach. And there will be people that I can reach that you can't reach. You know, it's just like doing my magic stuff, my prestidigitation, the fast fingers. Not everybody can do that. The tricks I do are hard, but the presentation is what's important. And not everybody can do that. Because I'm called to reach a different people than a lot of people. And I know most people think, oh, you like to do it for kids. And I do. I love to do it for kids. But I like to do it for adults too. Because it melts y'all's brains too. All right. No foul language should come out of your mouth, but only what is good for building someone up in need, so that it gives grace to those who hear. That's a big one for me. You know, if you've seen my Facebook page, you know I speak fluent truck driver with a construction accent. So, I mean, y'all know, and I don't hide it. I'm not any better than anyone. Let's go to Matthew chapter 15. All right. Matthew chapter 15, verse 11. It's not what goes into the mouth that defiles a person, but what comes out of the mouth. This is what defiles a person. Sometimes we do things and say things and eat things, drink things, and stuff that we probably shouldn't. But it's not what defiles us. Because how many of you know that you can't take back what you say? Once it's out there, it's out there. Even if you preface it by no offense. Because as soon as you say no offense, I'm ready to throat punch you because you're fixing to offend me. So if you have to say no offense, I don't mean to offend you, then don't say it. You know? That's the point. Because you know, there was one time years ago when I was a really young pastor, just learning how to be a pastor. And I went to a pastor's conference. And boy, I was excited. Because this was with a big ministry, a well-known TV pastor. That's kind of like, woo, I get to sit under his teaching at a pastor's conference. And guess what? They made a comment. They read the verse about there's life and death in the power of the tongue. How many of you believe that? Guess who the only person in the room was that raised their hand? Me. But guess what? if I would have let them, and it did for a while, they destroyed me at that moment. Because they said it's not true. They said, I can't tell you you're gonna die, and you die. And I'm kind of like, maybe not physically, but you just destroyed my spirit. Because you called me out in front of a whole room of pastors because I stood on the Word of God and made me look like an idiot. There's life and death in our words. And I'm not talking physical. I'm talking spiritual life and spiritual death. And that's the whole point of what I've been talking about up here today. Guys, our words are important. The things that we say are important. We shouldn't argue over the stupid stuff. You know, Ephesians says, we don't battle against flesh and blood, but against principalities and the prince of the air and the... I messed it all up. But anyway, it's in Ephesians. Y'all look it up.
You know what you're talking about.
It's Ephesians 4. We don't battle against flesh and blood. Just because somebody does something, claims to be something, wants to do something that has nothing to do with you, is not going to hurt you in any simple way other than it hurts our little feelings, we need to be gentle with them. Gentle as doves and wise as serpents. That's what we're called to be. We need to be gentle with people. We need to be gentle with people we don't like. Guess what? There's people that if they were on fire, I wouldn't walk across the street to dump a cup of water on them. But we're supposed to be gentle with them. You know? Did that make sense? Was there something going on there? Yeah, I'm looking. All right. But yeah, we're supposed to be gentle with them. We're supposed to be kind. We're supposed to lift them up. Do you have to associate with them? No. You don't. You don't have to be around people who are totally disagreeable with you. You don't, unless God tells you to. If God tells you to, then He's going to equip you to handle it. And if He doesn't equip you to handle it, maybe it's you're there to learn to be equipped to handle it the next time. But we don't have to be around people that despise us. There are people that I don't go around today because of things that have happened in the past. And I'm not called to put myself back in that situation. I learned my lesson the first time and the second time. Not so much the third time, but I finally got it through my hard, thick head that I don't need to be around those people anymore. But I still love them. I have to. I'm called to love them. And guess what? If I met them on the street, guess what? Not walk up to them, or if they walked up to me, I'd shake their hand. Hey, how you doing? It's all right. It's all cool. I wouldn't throat punch them or, anything like that. Wondering if that was some of them people. I heard them bikes going by. But remember, our words, what comes out of our mouths, is powerful. Powerful, powerful. Because God has called us to lift up the broken people, to help them put those pieces back together. We may be that person's only light in their life at that time. We may be the only person that they thought they would never be able to turn to because of our past. But it's okay. We're called to be the light. We're called to be the salt. So just remember, first thing in the morning when you open up your eyes and the light is bright, it hurts. the same way for people that we deal with. When we bring the light into their darkness, it hurts them. If you have an open wound and you rub salt into it, and we're called to be the salt, guess what? It hurts. It hurts them. That's why we're called to be gentle. That's why we have to be gentle. That's why we have to have a loving heart. Because guess what? They're not going to like it, even though it's what they need. Even though it's what we're called to do. But they're going to love you for it in the end, because we're going to be the one that's called to do that. And to be that person in their lives. Father, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for the word you've given today, Lord. Lord, I just help me to be that light. Help me to be the salt. And help me to be gentle in this walk. Help me to control my tongue. Lord, I just want to thank you for everything. Lord, you know the needs of the many. Lord, just move your hand and handle those situations like you know you will, Lord.